From sudden death goals to coin toss tiebreakers, these rules have shaped the game in some of the strangest ways. We're diving into the weirdest football rules you didn't know existed. Let's kick things off with the golden goal rule that was introduced in 1993 to resolve tied matches in knockout stages with a sudden death scenario. The idea was simple. The first team to score during extra time would immediately win the match. This rule aimed to make extra time more thrilling and encourage teams to play offensively rather than defensively. The golden goal brought a heightened sense of urgency and excitement, as every attack had the potential to end the game. Despite its dramatic potential, the rule received mixed reactions. Critics argued it placed too much pressure on teams and could lead to overly cautious play. After a decade, the golden goal was abandoned in 2004, replaced by traditional extra time and penalty shootouts. It remains a fascinating chapter in football history, showcasing the sport's constant evolution. Just when you thought the golden goal was intense, they introduced a softer alternative called the silver goal. This rule allowed the team that scored in the first half of extra time to hold their lead until the end of that half. If they were still leading, they would win the match. Designed to reduce the abruptness of the golden goal, it still encouraged teams to play for a win during extra time. However, like its predecessor, the silver goal received mixed reviews and was short-lived. Abandoned in 2004, this was another attempt to find the perfect balance between excitement and fairness in resolving tied matches. Speaking of fairness, the offside rule we know today wasn't always the same. Before 1925, the offside rule required 3 defenders between the attacker and the goal when the ball was passed to them. This was incredibly restrictive and led to many low-scoring games. The change in 1925 to only require 2 defenders opened up play, leading to more goals and excitement. This change promoted attacking football, making the sport more engaging for spectators. It's a perfect example of how modifying rules can significantly impact the dynamics and enjoyment of the game. Imagine playing with no substitutes allowed. That was the reality until 1965. In the early days of football, there were no substitutions. If a player was injured, their team had to continue with fewer players, skewing matches and putting immense physical demands on players. The introduction of substitutions in 1965 brought significant change, allowing injured or fatigued players to be replaced and maintaining the game's balance and competitiveness. Initially, only 1 substitution was allowed, but now multiple substitutions are permitted, even in extra time. This evolution has kept the game fairer and added more strategic depth. Speaking of visual clarity, let's talk about the colour clash rule. This has been around since the early 20th century, requiring teams to change their kit colours if they clashed with the opponents. This ensures players can easily distinguish teammates from opponents, essential for smooth gameplay. While the rule still exists, it's more flexible now with third kits and varied designs. Teams have multiple kits to choose from, preventing visual conflicts during matches. This rule highlights the importance of clear visual distinction in maintaining game quality and fairness. Now here's a quirky one from the 1920s. The 3 and 5 rule. In the 1920s, the 3 and 5 rule required at least 3 defending players to be within 5 yards of the goalpost during a corner kick. This ensured corners were contested more fiercely and prevented clustering in the penalty area. The rule was eventually abolished for being overly prescriptive. Modern football relies on more fluid and less restrictive rules, allowing various defensive strategies during set pieces. Let's step back to the 19th century when goals had tape or rope stretched between the posts instead of crossbars, often leading to disputes about whether the ball had crossed the line. The introduction of the solid crossbar in 1875 provided a clear and consistent goal height indicator, reducing controversies. The crossbar has since become a crucial part of the goal structure, ensuring the accuracy and fairness of scoring in football. And before standardized uniforms, teams played as shirts and skins. In the early days of football, teams distinguished themselves by playing as shirts and skins. One team wore shirts, while the other played without them. This was a practical solution before organised kits, but had limitations, especially in terms of professionalism and comfort. As football became more formalised, teams adopted specific uniforms, leading to the diverse and colourful kits we see today. This change helped in clearly identifying teams and added to the sport's visual appeal. Here's a bizarre one. Tiebreakers by coin toss. Matches ending in a draw were often decided by a coin toss. This method was used in the absence of a fair way to determine the winner. The randomness of the coin toss was not seen as fair, as it didn't reflect the team's skill and effort. Over time, replays, extra time, and penalty shootouts were introduced to provide a more balanced way to resolve tied matches. The evolution from coin tosses to these methods underscores football's ongoing efforts to improve fairness and excitement. Next up, goalkeepers didn't always wear gloves. Before the 1970s, it was uncommon for goalkeepers to wear gloves. Playing without gloves made it difficult for goalkeepers to handle and catch the ball, especially in wet or cold conditions. The introduction of specialized gloves revolutionized the position, providing better grip and protection for the hands. The change improved goalkeepers' performance and confidence, enhancing the overall game quality. Modern gloves are highly advanced, incorporating technology that assists in shot stopping and ball control. Imagine playing on an unmarked pitch. That was the norm in the early days, leading to confusion about boundaries, penalty areas, and other crucial zones. This lack of markings made it difficult for referees to enforce rules consistently and for players to understand the field's layout. Introducing clear and standardized pitch markings was a significant step towards modernizing the game, ensuring clarity and fairness in gameplay. Let's move on to the throw-in rule, which wasn't always part of the game. Originally, football matches didn't use throw-ins to restart play when the ball went out of bounds. Instead, players kicked the ball back into play from the touchline, leading to chaotic scrambles and lacking the strategic element of modern throw-ins. Introducing the throw-in rule added a new dimension, allowing teams to retain possession and execute planned maneuvers. This rule change also helps speed up the game and reduce disputes about restarts. Now let's talk about some unique rules from the Northern American Soccer League. In the 1970s, the NASL introduced several unconventional rules to make the game more exciting for American audiences. One such rule was the double points rule, where teams were awarded double points for goals scored from outside the penalty area. This aimed to encourage long-range shots and increase spectacular goals. While interesting, it wasn't aligned with traditional rules and was eventually abandoned. The NASL's experimentation highlights the balance between innovation and maintaining the sport's integrity. Another unique rule from the NASL awarded bonus points for scoring 3 or more goals in a match. This promoted attacking play and higher scoring games, making matches more entertaining for fans. Teams were incentivized to keep pushing for more goals, even when comfortably ahead. While it led to exciting matches, it was ultimately seen as inconsistent with the traditional point system. The NASL's approach illustrates how different leagues have experimented with rules to enhance the spectator experience. Did you know there were no red cards before 1970? Before 1970, referees didn't use red and yellow cards to manage player behavior. Instead, they verbally cautioned or sent off players, which relied heavily on the referee's authority and could lead to misunderstandings. The introduction of red and yellow cards during the 1970 World Cup brought a clear, universal method for referees to communicate decisions, greatly improving game management. The card system ensures clarity and consistency in officiating. So there you have it, the weirdest football rules you didn't know existed. Which rule surprised you the most? Do you know of any other strange rules we missed? Let us know in the comments and subscribe to Life Football so you never miss a video.